Welcome back to my channel with some not so surprising turn of events. I was not able to make it to the the next day. I had some issues with editing. I edited it on my iPad. It was about 4 hours of footage. Edited it, and then it didn't want to render. So here we are. That's basically useless at this point. It's no longer current. So we're just gonna move on and hope for the best with some not so surprising news today. Israel has decided to be a piece of shit again. So surprising. Well, I should say Netanyahu, it's not Israel. But with Al Jazeera, Jazeera, I don't fucking know. Anyway, Israel Netanyahu orders powerful immediate attacks on Gaza, where basically Israel bombed Gaza from north to south, killing at least 18 Palestinians and wounding dozens after an alleged exchange of gunfire between Israeli forces and Hamas fighters. Hamas has rejected any involvement in what Israel described as a shooting attack in Rafah in southern Gaza, which it used to justify the deadly airstrikes. So at this point, I don't think anybody is unknowledgeable in the fact that Israel is finding any excuse to keep this war going. I think there's a lot of benefits to them demolishing Gaza and all of the people involved, and obviously that ceasefire was not successful, which honestly is a fucking shame. What I think they should do moving forward is I think Trump should stop Israel, because Israel is the one who has stopped this ceasefire. Israel is the one who has gone against it with the excuse of, oh well, you didn't return our dead people. Like, I'm sorry, let me rant for a second. The whole complaint was they didn't return dead people, so they're gonna kill more people. Does that make sense? That doesn't make sense to me personally. That doesn't make sense to me. What are you doing? Get out of here. Anyway, so that's from that. There is another ad, of course, because we can't just leave our ads to ourselves. And then there's another from BBC. Israel strikes Gaza after accusing Hamas of ceasefire violations. This one's more conclusive. They write their articles in a I find it more cohesive. But anyway, so Israel has carried out airstrikes in response to what Israel has carried out airstrikes in Gaza in response to what Israeli officials said were violations on of the US brokered ceasefire agreement. Again, they didn't give dead bodies that were buried in rubble back to Israel. That's what this is about. Israeli Defense Minister Katz, I'm assuming that's how you say that, accused Hamas of attacking Israeli soldiers in Gaza on Tuesday and breaching the terms on returning the bodies of the deceased hostages. So what I said, and then they added, apparently they're accusing Hamas of attacking soldiers on Tuesday, which I doubt, considering everything that's happened previously. So the Palestinian armed group claimed it had no connections to the attack and insisted it was committed to the ceasefire deal. At least 33 Palestinians. I do think it's important to note that Hamas did not go to the big shebang that they had to celebrate the ceasefire deal. Um, it might not be related. It might be related, but I do think that that's important to note. Um, but anyway, the Palestinian armed group claimed it had no connection to the attack. At least 33 Palestinians were killed in the series of Israeli strikes, according to Gaza's Hamas-run civil defense agency and hospital officials. The attacks hit homes, schools, and residential blocks in Gaza City, and a few other places. Despite the Despite the flare-up, U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance said he believed the ceasefire was holding. So they're probably just hunkering down and hoping for the best. A brief statement put out by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, his office, on Tuesday evening said he had ordered forceful strikes. Oh, interesting, interesting. Wow, I'm so surprised. By the military, but did not specify his reasons. However, Katz said Hamas had crossed a bright red line by launching an attack on Israeli soldiers in Gaza on Tuesday. Hamas will pay many times over for attacking the soldiers and for violating the agreement to return the fallen hostages, he warned. An Israeli military official said the Hamas attack took place east of the Yellow Line, which demarcates Israeli-controlled territory inside Gaza under the ceasefire deal. Israeli media reported that troops in southern Gaza city of Rafah had come under anti-tank missile and sniper fire on Tuesday afternoon while Palestinian media reported Israeli artillery shelling in the area at the same time. After the Israeli military carried out airstrikes in Gaza on Tuesday evening, witnesses reported powerful explosions in several parts of territory, including Gaza City in the north and Khan Yunis in the south. So yeah, it goes on and on about what exactly is going. Apparently, J.D. Vance is delusional, saying the ceasefire is holding. That doesn't mean that there aren't going to be little skirmishes here and there. So to me, a ceasefire means the fire has ceased, as in no shooting, no killing is currently happening. If there are shootings and killings happening, obviously, to me, that means the ceasefire no longer exists. But according to J.D. Vance, apparently that has a different meaning. So that's interesting. I didn't realize definitions changed. He again, and then further, they say, we know Hamas or somebody else within Gaza attacked an Israeli soldier. We expect the Israelis are going to respond, but I think the president's peace is going to hold despite that. So I am hoping in this case that whoever, I'll say it like this, whoever is responsible for the return of violence, and no, I don't think it's Hamas. Don't get me wrong, I don't support Hamas and what they've done, but this war started because Israel refused to stay out of Gaza. This war started because Israel refused to mind their business. And don't get me wrong, I'm not pro Hamas in the slightest. I'm definitely not pro Israel. I think they have used their connections to do terrible, heinous war crimes. So moving on to a hopefully better topic. All right. So from ABC News, Speaker Johnson says no path for a third Trump term. So before I talk about this, so Trump has been talking about a third term, like hinting at like, oh, maybe I'll get into a third term, maybe I'll, you know, and I think I've talked about this before, but if I haven't, I'm going to reiterate. Obama has also done the same thing. He had said specifically, it was something along the lines of, if he could just work in the shadows and have a third term that way, then he would do it. So again, I feel like people are being a little too harsh on Trump when, the cookie crumbles the other way and nobody cares. But anyway, moving forward, we will read this. So, um, House Speaker Mike Johnson said on Tuesday that he does not see the path for President Donald Trump to seek a third term. It's been a great run, but I think the president knows, and he and I have talked about it, the constrictions of the Constitution, as much as so many of the American people lament that. Johnson said during a news conference on Capitol Hill. Johnson said that he had spoken to Trump Tuesday morning. The president is currently in Japan for a 3-country tour through Asia. I don't see a way to amend the Constitution because it takes about 10 years to do that, Johnson, a constitutional lawyer, said. As you all know, to allow the states to ratify what 2/3 of a House and 3/4 of a state would approve. So I don't see a path forward, but I can tell you that we're not going to take our foot off the gas pedal. So I don't like how he said that. I don't like how he said that at all. How he says we're not going to take our foot off the gas pedal. So I don't think anybody should get a third term, regardless of who they are. Yeah, Trump has done fairly well over the years in office that he's been in. I don't think anybody should get a third term. I'd say the same thing for Obama. I'd say the same thing for, hell, I'd say the same thing if Jesus was in office. I don't think anybody should get a third term. I think it's a terrible thing for either side to go, oh yeah, our side should get a third term, because for equality to exist, you would need to have both sides to be able to get a third term at that point. If the Constitution is rewritten, then obviously that would be a different thing. Should they be able to serve more than 8 years? No. I think there should be term limits on every office, including the Senate, including the House, including everything. And the fact that that's not the thing, that's not the current situation, I feel like has become a huge issue in a lot of areas. You have a fuck ton of old people just chilling in office because humans in general have a tendency to thrive off of like comfort. Like you have your comfort food, you have your comfort congressman, right? It's the same idea. So those people will perpetually be in office and they use that to their advantage. Even if they are old as tar. So anyway, Trump has commented multiple times about a third term, despite it being barred by the Constitution. The 22nd Amendment explicitly states no person should be elected to the nation's highest office more than twice. On Monday, Trump said he would, quote, love to do it, unquote, when asked about a potential 2028 bid. So that's not necessarily like that specific quote. I don't remember every specific quote he said. Because I do remember more that are like specifically he wants to run a third term, but that's just him saying like if it was a possibility he would love to do it. That's not like him actually trying to run for a third time, you know. That's really about it out of that one. Next one from Reuters. States sue over Trump administration suspending food benefits during shutdown. So that's not Trump that's doing that. That's just kind of, so the way a just based off of the title, the way a government shutdown works is all federal spending in general kind of goes out the window. None of those things are able to be spent on because there is no budget for it. So until they no longer are shut down, there's just not going to be a budget for it. That has nothing to do with Trump. Trump decided nothing in relation to that. So to say that that's Trump's administration, like, no, that's very much so not Trump's fault. So anyway, a coalition of Democratic-led states sue the Trump administration on Tuesday, seeking to avert what would be a historic lapse in food aid for millions of Americans that is set to begin November 1st amid an ongoing government shutdown. The lawsuit represents a critical challenge to the U.S. Department of Agriculture's decision not to use $6 billion in contingency funds to pay for the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. So yes, that part, not using those funds to pay for the SNAP program, that was Trump's administration making that decision, which, to run the numbers, so we're not being biased here, yes, that was their decision, but also they only have $6 billion in funds and it costs $8 billion monthly. So it's already been over a month that they've kept this shut down. So yeah, no, it's just not, it's not feasible, and it's a temporary fix to begin with. So to put all this heat on Trump, I don't think that it's really fair. At stake is whether more than 41 million, low-income Americans will receive their November benefits, which would mark the first time payments have lapsed due to a government shutdown in the program's 60-year history. The federal government has the money to continue funding SNAP benefits. They're choosing to harm. So again, they don't have the funding. They have $6 billion and it costs $8 billion monthly. So they do not have the funding. They would fall short by billions. And I know like 6 and 8 aren't that big of a difference, but when you include that they are billions of dollars, that is a very large difference. So the federal government has the money to continue funding SNAP benefits. They're choosing to harm millions of families across the country already struggling to make ends meet. So again, they don't have the money. And I think this is just virtue signaling at this point. This is virtue signaling. And if you don't know what that is, it's basically when you say, oh, this thing's bad, and then you don't really worry about like what you're actually doing, you know? So basically let me see what else. There are Democrats that have been placed in, I don't remember if it's the House or the Senate at this point. Anyway, a bunch of old people, but they're literally
using to vote for the continuing resolution. So you're blaming the Republicans for the shutdown, but in point of fact, it's the Democrats in the Senate who are refusing to vote for the clean continuing resolution to fund the government for 7 weeks. I mean, that just as a point of fact, the way that we have always covered shutdowns is that the party that is not voting for the CR, the continuing resolution to fund the government, is the party that is blocking the government funding and is responsible for the shutdown. That's how we
real world effects from the shutdown, though. I mean, are people saying, wait a minute, we understand the healthcare argument, but I'm not getting a paycheck now?
Yeah, I mean, shutdowns are terrible.
But are they criticizing your side, the Republican side, a pox on all your houses, saying, I need that paycheck, I'm a federal worker?
You know,
So this is Catherine Clark, one of the Democrats in the House that are currently keeping the shutdown going.
We are seeing that, of course, families that are all of a sudden relying on, a paycheck for the work they do from the federal government, when that doesn't come, that's an incredible hardship. Shutdowns are terrible, and of course there will be, families that are going to suffer. We take that responsibility very seriously, but it is one of the few leverage times we have. I mean, shutdowns are terrible.
So again, if you didn't hear her, she said this is one of the few leverage times that she has. So essentially she's using all of this damage, all of this carnage to the American people as leverage to get what she wants. So let's clear up for anybody who doesn't know, what do they want? Okay, so this one says, this is from The Guardian. Shutdown stretches into the 28th day as Senate again fails to pass spending legislation. So it's currently stuck in the Senate. It hit the House already, and the House passed it. But anyway, so it failed. According to this, it has failed because the minority party has refused to provide the necessary support for the bill to clear the 60-vote threshold. This is, from what I understand, the last I heard, it was 4 votes away from that 60 votes, so it's very close. It is not to the point where if the Democrats that are blocking it would not, like, they can't win, essentially. It would be more likely for it to remain shut down than them to win this shutdown. But they're essentially attempting to hold everybody hostage because it does not include funding for healthcare programs or curbs on Donald Trump's cuts to congressionally approved funding. So me personally, I've read a lot of shit about they want money to go to the Congo, money to go to other countries, money to go to just unnecessary things. It's well past the government health aid. Not only that, to me personally, Obamacare hasn't exactly helped us. It has made healthcare a lot more inaccessible, if that makes sense. I personally don't want to I don't want to give the government a fuck ton of my information. I know they technically already have it, but to tell them every single thing that I am earning at every given time, it's not exactly exciting to me. I would much rather prefer it to be what it used to be, where you needed a house, so they gave you a house. They didn't ask questions, right? And I understand to a certain extent why they don't do that anymore, but they don't need to ask every 6 months the same questions, right? They don't need to know every single thing about my life. I would rather go without healthcare at that point. And not only that, it's also made it extremely difficult for places like doctors are essentially forced, and this isn't just a Obamacare thing, but it's a healthcare thing in general. Doctors are essentially forced to get a lesser amount of pay, because like the insurance will only pay them so much, and they have to kind of just like, oh, well, that sucks, say their service is worth $80, the insurance will pay them 20. They're kind of shit out of luck. They have to take that 20 and give up, essentially. That's not exactly how capitalism works. And it has overall increased prices, if you ask me. But anyway, top Senate Democrat Chuck Schumer signaled no change in his party's strategy of holding for concession from the Republicans, citing the imminent rise of premiums For the Affordable Care Act health plans, though tax credits that lower their costs expire at the end of the year, many enrollees in the plan have received notices of steep premium increases ahead of Saturday's beginning of the open enrollment period. So, you know how you fix that? You don't go. And I know there are a lot of people with like health issues, right? I know there are a lot of people that, you know, they need like a diabetes medication or something. But in the cases where like you don't need healthcare, I don't specifically think anybody needs healthcare. Like I don't think you need to go to the dentist. Like I haven't gone to the dentist in years, right? I actually, since I turned 18, I have gone to the dentist once, right? And I mean, my teeth are fine. This is just, they created a need that doesn't actually exist in most cases. Unless you already have an issue, you're not gonna need shit like that. And I mean, capitalism exists for a reason, and I think we should use it to our benefit, to not use the government to raise the prices of anything. Like you can look at how like before the government got involved in funding college, it was affordable under maybe probably a part-time job, but maybe a full-time job. Like it's just not realistic to need the government in every little aspect. It's just not necessary. But I've also heard of things, of course now I can't find them, but I've heard of things regarding like they wanted to send money to the Congo. They wanted to add billions and billions of dollars here and there for like whatever. It had nothing to do with the American people. So to say that this is just because of, you know, whatever, but just shut the fuck up. Thank you. Okay, so the only thing I can really find on this is the Affordable Care Act. That's not my initial thoughts on it. I don't think the Affordable Care Act should really be a thing in the first place. If you ask me, if there is a true need for it, this is a capitalist country, right? If there's a true need for it, people will find a way to pay it, right? Yes, that kind of sucks for like those poorer families and everything, but at the end of the day, if there is a need for it, it will be paid for, and if there's not a need for it, the price will be lowered. Since the Affordable Care Act has been put into place, it has actually become less affordable. I know personally, like I had to go to outside insurance companies to be able to even find providers, because I went to therapy for a while, and there was absolutely under government insurance, there's absolutely no one who would actually take me. I think it's unrealistic to say that this is a reason why we should be not allowing people, because not only like allowing this government shutdown to continue not only cuts the Affordable Care Act, like nobody's getting healthcare, but also nobody's getting food. Government employees aren't getting pay. The only people that are getting pay are the military, and that's because of a unidentified donor. So do we really care that much about Obamacare health plans? I personally don't. But I don't think that healthcare in general is needed. I think it's a West civilization, quote unquote, need. A lot of things are, you can take care of yourself by just taking care of yourself by not treating your body like garbage, right? But yeah, that's that one. Okay. Moving on. The case was assigned to U.S. District Judge Talwani, who was appointed by Democratic former President Barack Obama. She set a hearing for Thursday on whether to issue a temporary restraining order forcing the USDA to use available contingency funds for November SNAP benefits. Again, they have $6 billion. They need $8 billion for that month. It's not going to get them that far. I understand these people want food benefits, but also like there's not enough for everybody. So to say like, oh well, these people are more needy, like I know, I'm gonna rant again. Excuse me, I personally know people that are on SNAP that do not need SNAP, that they are doing it out of laziness. And don't get me wrong, there are some families, like the economy's ass right now, right? The economy is garbage right now. So there are people who can't afford things, right? But I think by using SNAP benefits, by using government benefits to exist, it's not necessary. And I say that because the more things are funded, the more it's okay for, oh, well, egg price has gone up, but it doesn't matter because it's coming out of the government's wallet, not your wallet. So they can raise the prices as much as they want. So I think it's a downward spiral that this is allowing, just with its existence. I understand why they put it in place in the first place. There are people with disabilities that legitimately can't go out and can't work. But that's what disability is for, right? I don't think there should be a specific food benefit. I don't think there should be a specific health benefit. Like, there should be an income benefit for those who truly cannot provide an income for themselves. But past that, like, no. I think it just causes inflation overall. Do I think people should starve? No, not at all. But I also don't think there should be all these government programs to help people when in reality the economy would most likely get better if these things weren't in place. If you were relying on only the income, like the prices are going to be lower if you don't have as many people buying things, right? Because the demand's not as high because they just can't afford things. But anyway, so the lawsuit argues the suspension of benefits is arbitrary and being carried out in violation of the law and regulations governing the program, which requires that the assistance under this program shall be furnished for all eligible households. The lawsuit, led by the Attorneys General of Massachusetts, California, Arizona, and Minnesota, says the Food and Nutrition Act of 2008 makes clear that contingency funds should be used when necessary to carry out program operations. Millions of Americans are about to go hungry because of the federal government has chosen to withhold food assistance, and it is legally obligated to provide. So this might just be me and my personal thoughts on the world. I don't think you are entitled to food. I don't think you are entitled to healthcare. I don't think you are entitled to anything. I think the whole part of surviving as a human is doing whatever you need to survive. I wholeheartedly, as a biologist, believe in survival of the fittest, and if you are not fit to survive, you shouldn't survive. That's a kind of a cruel way, maybe a apathetic way of looking at things, but at the end of the day, that's nature. That's what nature does. If you are weak, you don't survive. I mean, that's why I like with humans specifically, you see a lot of community. So that's how people with disabilities are taken care of, is community. But I think it's gotten to like mass scale, to the point where we can no longer actually be effective with it. Whereas right now it's like the large governments taking care of the little people that can't take care of themselves, or in a lot of cases don't want to take care of themselves, and they're lazy pieces of shit. You know who you are. Those people should be taken care of by their small community members, right? Their close family, their close neighbors, their close friends. That's how they should be taken care of. Moving on, it doesn't really say, the rest of this doesn't really say too much else. It's just more like yapping, right? We've got the point across already. From political whatever. Anyway, Trump's cash demands continue to bedevil deal with South Korea. The White House and South Korean government continue to haggle over the details of Seoul's $350 billion investment commitment. Okay. The United States and South Korea still can't agree on a key plank of the tentative trade agreement they inked over the summer, despite U.S. pressure to finalize the deal during Donald Trump's visit to the country on Wednesday. Seoul is bridling over Trump's insistence that South Korea pony up $350 billion in an upfront payment to the U.S. government as a part of the investments it's promised in July. South Korean officials have warned that doing so would crater their economy and potentially destabilize the value of their currency, the won. According to 3 people in touch with the South Korean and U.S. negotiators, the Trump administration is now considering softening some of its initial demands for the investment. The details of the investment is a major stumbling block, said one person familiar with the U.S.-South Korean trade talks, who was granted anonymity to share sensitive details. It's not been decided what the sources of those funds will be, whether it includes loans or loan guarantees, and the process for investment project selection and profit sharing. It's a sign of the challenges the administration faces during a series of eye-popping foreign investment pledges into reality. In addition to South Korea, Japan and the European Union have promised to invest hundreds of billions of dollars in the U.S. states in the U.S. in exchange for lower tariffs rates, but they chafed over some of the initial terms for spending the money that Trump and his top officials demanded. Any leeway the president may grant South Korea in fulfilling its investment pledge will likely set a precedent for other countries pursuing trade negotiations with the U.S. So, what exactly is this investment? Like, I don't understand what he's, like, asking all of this money for. Like, what are you asking all this money for? Like, so they get a less of a percent on a tariff? I don't get it. Okay, moving on. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. I thought that said bassinet at first. I'm like, what the fuck? Are we sleeping? Acknowledged Monday that the deal is unlikely to be finalized during Trump's nearly week-long trip to Asia. There's just a lot of details to work out, Bessent told reporters on Air Force One en route from Kuala Lumpur to Tokyo. It's a very complicated deal, and I think we're very close. A White House spokesperson declined to comment on the state of the negotiations. South Korea's Ministry of Foreign Affairs did not respond to a request for comment. The president and some of his top economic officials raised expectations earlier this month that both sides could finalize the handshake agreement they struck in July ahead of a Wednesday sit-down with President Lee Jae-myung. Speaking to reporters Friday, Trump claimed that the agreement was pretty close to being finalized and said he was ready to fill in the details from the framework outlined this summer if Seoul was too. Okay. So, obviously, like, if we are able to get money at all from a foreign government, that's going to be a win for us. Not really sure what they gain from it, like getting a little bit of a tariff break, like, okay, whatever. That helps their products be more profitable overall. Because at the end of the day, that's going to be money that, like, they're going to have to raise the price of. They're going to probably spend they're probably going to spend more money getting shit over here that isn't going to sell as well because it's going to be like a higher price, right? So I can understand that sense, but billions, like, maybe I'm just not thinking about it properly, but like that just doesn't make sense to me why they would spend billions of dollars over it. I understand, like, America specifically is a very much like, we have a very consumer mindset over things. Like, if you go to other countries, like, fast fashion isn't exactly a thing. So overall, for a business, that can turn a profit really fast, right? Just because of how we are as, like, people. Thanks, Walmart. But unfortunately, I don't see that carrying on for much longer. Give it 10 years, I think, and it'll be gone. All right. So to the Los Angeles Times, Mexican president condemns U.S. strikes that killed 14 alleged drug traffickers. Shut the fuck up. Thank you. All right. So the Trump administration has widened its war against alleged drug traffickers, killing 14 people in attacks on 4 boats off Mexico's Pacific coast, a move condemned by Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum, I think. The Pentagon said Tuesday that it carried out the strikes in international waters in the eastern Pacific Ocean on Monday. The U.S. and Sheinbaum initially said that one survivor had been rescued by Mexico's Navy, though the Navy later clarified that its search for the lone survivor was ongoing. How do you know that there's one survivor? That's odd. That comes off as, like, really shady to me. Anyway, Sheinbaum denounced the strikes and ordered officials from her administration to discuss them with the U.S. ambassador to Mexico. We do not agree with these attacks, with how they are carried out, Sheinbaum said. We want all international treaties to be complied with. So this is just, like, in general, like, this is all really shady to me. Like, I feel like this is just, like, my instincts, but I feel like she's connected to it. Like it's giving, I did not have sexual relations with that woman, you know? It's suspicious. I don't like it. But that's just a theory. So moving on. Okay, so this is just talking about how, yeah, not gonna be in a war. Fantastic. Great. Okay, another one from Politico. Judge extends order barring mass firings of federal workers during shutdown. I don't care about all that. Okay. A federal judge has indefinitely extended her order banning the Trump administration from mass firing federal employees during the government shutdown. Following a hearing Tuesday, U.S. District Judge Susan Ilston granted a preliminary injunction blocking reductions in force, better known as RIFs, at most major government agencies. Barring further action by a higher court, Ilston's decision limits the Trump administration's ability to continue downsizing the federal government and moves it has made to leverage the ongoing shutdown to cut federal programs and agencies favored by Democrats. So, again, I don't think you should have any help from the government. I don't think, okay, so I should clarify. I don't think there should be all these programs for, I think it causes, yes, the decision behind them, they have good motives, but I feel like it just causes more harm than good in most cases. So to limit them, just think of how we were doing in World War One, how we were doing in World War Two. We were doing okay. Our communities were, I don't want to necessarily say okay, because in a war we're not doing great, but our communities were a lot more tight-knit. With the government being so involved, I think it's caused a lot more issues than it has good. I don't think we need a government in general, but that's just me. Anyway, the judge also barred the administration from implementing RIF notices issued during the shutdown, and she said she might hold further court proceedings to resolve disputes about some RIFs that were in the works just before the shutdown began on October 1st. The Trump administration is expected to appeal instance ruling to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. A Justice Department spokesperson declined to comment. So what I don't understand is why bother? If you can't pay the people, you can't pay the people. And I'm not necessarily saying oh, cut them. Use this as an excuse to cut all these programs, cut all this funding. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think it should be you should go through the correct processes to cut these things. However, to say that you can't lay off employees that you can't afford to pay, you're making them work without pay, which is, to me, that's unconstitutional. I don't know if it's actually unconstitutional, but it fucking should be. And I know it's illegal working without pay. That's taxation without representation type shit, So to say that you can't at least lay off people that you can't afford to pay because of a government shutdown, I think is ridiculous. You have chaos, right? If you allow that to go too far. But like non-essential workers, if they're not essential, why are they there in the first place, right? Like, I think our government should only be essential workers, not all these like extra people. Anyway, so a Justice Department attorney defending the administration at the hearing Tuesday, Michael Vilchix, said the firings were lawful and represented the will of the electorate expressed through President Donald Trump's victory at the polls last year. So yes and no. Just because somebody agrees with you more than another person, like I don't think I've ever fully agreed with one specific candidate of any office, not just presidential office, of any office, right? So I don't think that's a good argument if that's what they're going with. But at the same time, like, yes, we do want our government to be taking less money. Like, I don't know about you guys, but when I look at my paycheck and it's 25%, literally 25% is taken out of taxes. And I don't receive any type of like government benefits. The roads are ass because I live in PA. There's potholes fucking everywhere to the point where you need to memorize the roads so your car doesn't die. Like, these things are just not, like, it's not adding up. Like, where's the money going at that point? Which I feel like a lot of people are feeling that way. And that's why a lot of people voted for Trump, because he promised to find where the fuck the money was going, because it's not going to benefit me. It's not going to benefit my neighbor. So where's it going? And I think, honestly, there are a lot of people in the US. There are a lot of people that don't want to work, are too lazy to work, don't feel like it. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've seen that bullshit. Oh, if you are white, you are my oppressor. You are my oppressor, and you owe me reparations. Like, I'm sorry. Fucking what? First of all, slavery happened how many fucking years ago at this point? You don't even have anybody in your family still alive that went through slavery. So I feel like at that point, like, calm the fuck down. Yes, it was shit, but does that mean you get to be a shitty person? No. Okay. Moving on. The Guardian. U.S. Senate passes bill with Republican support to rescind Trump tariffs on Brazil. The U.S. Senate on Tuesday approved a measure that would terminate Donald Trump's sweeping tariffs on Brazilian imports, including coffee, beef, and other products, in a rare bipartisan show of opposition to the president's trade war. The legislation passed in a 52 to 48 vote with 5 Republicans. Just states the Republicans joining all Democrats in favor. The vote took place on day 28 of the federal government shutdown. So I don't think they should be allowed to do any legislation. If there is a government shutdown, okay, so this is how I think this should be handled. If there is a government shutdown due to, like, let's say due to the House, there's a government shutdown. Okay. Everyone in the House is held hostage until a decision is made and that government shutdown no longer exists. Like, that is literally, that's your job. That is what you were voted in for, was to make decisions, not to shut down the government. And you should do it without pay until a decision is made. Moving on to extracurricular ideas. I think everything else should be paused. Like, all further decisions should be paused until that government shutdown is resolved. I don't think you should be able to hear other issues, other bills, other other legislation. Like, I think the government shutdown should be the top priority. Moving on. The resolution, led by Senator Tim Kaine, a Democrat of Virginia, would overturn the national emergency that Trump has declared to justify the levies, though it is all but certain to stall in the U.S. House, where the Republican-controlled chamber acted to preemptively shut down any attempt to block the president's tariffs. In the unlikely event the measure were to reach the president's desk, it would meet Trump's veto. Okay. Tariffs are a tax on the American suit. Okay, so yes and no. Again, so we can, that's where you get in muddy waters. So, like, technically, capitalism, you should just allow things to, like, go by the wayside, that there isn't enough need that they, like, keep up with the prices, right? I think consumerism, just the fact that nobody's buying things, that will just take care of itself. It'll wind itself up and then wind itself out. Things that aren't actually needed, right? But to a certain extent, like, obviously, like, food, I feel like shouldn't really be tariffed to a certain extent, but also, like, we can grow everything in the US. Everything Britain can grow, we can grow. So why aren't we? I understand a lot of people in the US are big backed, but, like, we can get that all here, right? We have beef farms, we have milk farms, we have crops, like, we can do all that here. So coffee's a little different. I'm not sure about tea, but coffee requires, like, a really warm climate. It's like South America type shit, right? So that's slightly different. So things like that, sure. I get why we import those things that we truly cannot grow in the US. I can understand why we import those, but I don't see the issue. I really don't. Just do American made. Why do we need to go to a different area? That by causing these more expensive things, it makes way for okay, I'll say it like this: by tariffing things that are out of country, it makes way for cheaper alternative options, American options, to make way, which would create more jobs. It would create more possibility for our country rather than somebody else's country, and it would fund our own economy rather than somebody else's economy. So I do think that there is, like, a hidden benefit to tariffs. And at the end of the day, if you don't need it, tariffs are going to stop you from buying it if you don't truly need it. Right? So again, consumerism is, like, a huge thing in America, to the point where, like, you spend a fuck ton more than you actually need to. I can't tell you the last time I actually bought clothing, because I don't need to buy clothing, but there's all these fast fashion brands, and a lot of people will buy clothing every month. That's not necessary. And, like, this is what it said. It was, it's including, so it's not necessarily all of it, but coffee, beef, and other products, right? So yeah, you can't necessarily, like, you go through coffee, you go through beef. It's I don't want to say expendable, but it expires eventually. You can't just wash it and rewear it. You can't just, like, shit it out and then, like, reprocess it. That's not possible. But, there are, like, American versions of beef. There are, other ways we can get around that. I don't know what his obsession with tariffs are, though. Okay, the sole Republican co-sponsor of the legislation told reporters on Capitol Hill, emergencies are like war, famine, tornado. Not liking someone's tariffs is not an emergency, and it's abuse. Oh, they did it as an emergency. What do you mean emergencies? Is Congress advocating their traditional role in Texas? So they did this shit as an emergency? I don't think they know what emergency means. Any president of any party could say that anything is a national emergency. Yeah. This president has said that their prosecution of a politician is a national emergency. Yeah, so that's a little dramatic on Trump's end. A little excessive. Not an emergency. But okay. That the U.S. has been exploited by foreign countries for far too long, and the aggressive protectionist policies will benefit U.S. workers. Yeah, okay, so I understand that it'll benefit us in the long run, but in the short run, people will see, like, prices being raised, to the point where, like, it seems like it's being gouged. So, like, it's kind of like a, hey, you gotta trust me on this, It will eventually figure itself out where, like, American owned businesses will be the ones that'll be thriving because they'll be cheaper. But yeah, no, this is hardly an emergency. Anyway, so moving on to, okay, Bez Chicago. That's a weird ass name. Anyway, so Border Patrol's Bovino agrees to return to court daily as he and federal judge talk body cams, tear gas, IDs. Okay. Oh, that's a cute little drawing. I love that they do that. Like when cameras aren't allowed in court. I love that they do that. Anyway, so okay. So the top U.S. Border Patrol commander spent an hour on the stand Tuesday responding to U.S. District Judge Sarah Ellis's concerns about how federal agents have handled themselves, people they've detained, protesters, and journalists. Not only did U.S. Patrol boss Gregory Bovino show his face in a federal courtroom Tuesday, but he and a judge will be getting to know each other a lot better in the days to come. That's because U.S. District Judge Sarah Ellis said she wants to meet with the Border Patrol's commander at large every weeknight over the next 7 days as federal agents continue their aggressive deportation campaign that stretched from Little Village to Lakeview. Their daily meeting around 6 p.m. will give the judge a chance to speak with Bovino about the events of the day. And as they do so, Ellis will have in her back pocket a request that she fully ban the feds from using tear gas amid the immigration blitz. The judge said Tuesday that if agents continue to deploy gas, they'd better be able to back it up. And if they can't, then they will lose that as something they can use. Okay, so let's talk about this for a little bit. So I think you should be able to use tear gas in the case of like people becoming aggressive. It's like a part of force. It's something that happens before like shooting rubber bullets, before shooting like actual bullets, obviously, before like causing like I feel like tear gas would be like before a taser, right? Because tear gas, like at the end of the day, it's not going to cause much harm. It's just going to make you tear up a little bit, not be able to see very well, cause maybe a little bit of pain, but it'll go away, right? Versus like a taser could cause like possible health issues later down the line. So, well, no, I don't think you should just be gassing people randomly. If it starts to become unruly, I can understand why law enforcement would use that, right? Okay, so Tuesday's hearing revealed that Bovino has no body-worn camera. So that is, to me, that's a red flag. I feel like everybody should have a body camera, including civilians at this point, because you never know when something's going to happen that you want proof that, hey, I'm not lying, right? And just because someone is law enforcement, just because someone's a nurse, just because someone's a doctor, just because someone is legislator, like, I don't care who you are, I don't believe you unless there's a reason to believe you, right? And so that's suspicious. Nor the training to use one. I don't think there needs to be training to use a camera. Like, it's pretty fucking simple. You point it that way, you turn it on, you make sure it's charged. Like, there's what do you mean training? Like, that's excessive. Okay, so Bovino admitted the fact even after telling the judge that 99% of U.S. Customs and Border Protection agents here have that technology. See, yeah, that was I was under the premise that they all had body cams. Just like the majority of police officers nowadays, they have body cams. The judge told him to find himself a body-worn camera by Friday, noting that he probably has an in with Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. I've talked to her from time to time. Bovino acknowledged. Ellis also told Bovino that a sense of safety was shattered on Saturday when tear gas was used in Old Irving Park while children were on their way to a Halloween parade. She gave the feds lawyers a warning about its use when trick-or-treating time comes around this Friday. So obviously, like, children shouldn't be involved in this, but at the end of the day, like, criminals, like apprehending criminals, things could possibly happen to bystanders. That's why you want to get the situation like dealt with as fast as possible, rather than just letting people do whatever they want. I don't think that's the right answer. That's super cool. I like that. Anyway, so I don't want to get viral. I do not want to get violation reports from the plaintiffs that show agents are out and about on Halloween where kids are present and tear gas is being deployed. So I don't have an issue with agents being out on Halloween. Tear gas being deployed specifically around children, obviously, like that should definitely be avoided. And just in general, hopefully traumatizing children is going to be avoided. He appeared in full uniform for Tuesday's 90-minute hearing in which he faced the judge from the witness stand. Neither of them brought much bravado to the hearing. That's good. Rather, they remained calm, cordial, and professional. Fantastic. I'm so glad that people can do that still. So essentially, she's just saying, hey, don't use force. Stop it. Don't do it around kids. Stop it. That type of shit. So good for her. I agree. I agree with her. Okay, so live updates. This is from the New York Times. Live updates. Melissa is churning towards Cuba as Jamaica tries to assess its destruction. So this is a hurricane. Hurricane Melissa. The hurricane weakened to a Category 3 after carving a path of destruction across Jamaica. Limited communications. There have left officials with only partial reports as they seek to assess the scale of damage. So just like every hurricane, they're not going to know right away what exactly has been going on, what exactly has happened. It was a Category 5 when it hit Jamaica, so Cuba is most likely going to get hit less so than Jamaica has. I really hope everybody's okay, but I have a creeping suspicion that is not the case. So prayers for their families and any of those who have been lost. That's obviously, it's not like an article, it's just like a little video, so we can watch it if you like. So hurricane, I'll just keep it muted. Hurricane Melissa made landfall on Jamaica's southwestern coast on Tuesday. The Category 5 storm has wind speeds of up to 185 miles per hour at landfall, ripping off the roof of this building. The storm brought violent winds, uprooted trees, and caused flooding. No fucking shit. It's a hurricane. They always do the most office. Officials issued warnings to the public and urged people to go to shelters. So, about Jamaica, at least from what I know, a lot of those islands that tourists go to, there's so much poverty because of the tourism that shelters aren't really like effective, right? So a lot of people can't do that, which is why it's like even more devastating that hurricanes hit places like this. Obviously, no one can really control a hurricane, but like, I don't know. I feel like there's something better we could be doing to help these people in sense of true emergencies.
And still today, when we are expecting Melissa, there are still, as Evan have said, a small window of opportunity. Let us use it and use it wisely. Jamaica, this is not the time to be brave. I've been saying for 1 week, don't bet against Melissa. It is a bet we can't win.
Okay, so yeah, that's just I don't know his name, but he was just, if you can't understand Jamaican, you should still be able to understand that. So around 50,000 people are in shelters, and around 530,000 people are without power, Jamaican officials said. Struggling to assess how much damage the hurricane has done. Okay, so with sustained winds stronger than those of Hurricane Katrina, Melissa became one of the strongest Category 5 storms on our record. So yeah, obviously it's going to be very drastic. I really hope everybody's okay. I know logically that that's not the case, and I hope that everybody is able to recover with at least a very small amount of trauma involved. Okay. Well, that's it for today. I really hope that you guys have a solid day. I do apologize for the change of scenery and the change of equipment, and the severe lacking of posts. I'm gonna try to do this every day. It seems like it's gonna be more every week, until I get my shit together. But I will also be reading. I am currently reading Nobody's Girl, a memoir of surviving abuse and fighting for justice, by one of the Epstein victims. So I will be doing like a little book report on that if you are not able to buy it. Just giving like highlights, essentially, things that she specifically says in there, that I think are important for us as the people moving forward to know. I do obviously hope that you support that because, to my knowledge, the money that is made by that goes to her family, which they very much deserve. Obviously, she is now passed. The author is now passed, by suicide, so it will go to her family, to my knowledge. But yeah, so you guys have a good day. Have a good sleep, what have you. Okay, bye.